So right now, I'm going to show you a little bit about construction of a chainsaw chain and tooth, and then I'm going to show you how to sharpen it. Most important thing is that the cutting edge is right about here. Right where my pointer, where my file's pointing, there and across the top. And that little sharp edge there is shaped basically similar to a chisel edge. You know, as compared to a knife edge or something. A chisel edge, you know, has a flat on one side and then the angle going from that. And that's specifically good for grabbing little chunks of wood and pulling them up out of the cut, out of the kerf, right? So on a chainsaw chain, what you're really doing is filing away material here so that it restores this edge to be sharp. And when you're using the chainsaw, you know, it'll go for a good while and stay sharp, but eventually it's going to wear down and that sharp edge is going to be gone. It's especially going to be gone quickly if you manage to hit, say, a piece of a fence or a rock or some dirt, stuff like that. Then it's going to get dull. Running it up against a rock will dull a bunch of teeth really fast. The other part that's interesting here is this little surface right here is called the depth gauge. That controls how much of this tooth is actually going to bite into the wood. So you want to have something like 20 thousandths of an inch. If you measure horizontally here, if you draw a line to the top edge of that tooth, you want it to be about 20 thousandths of an inch higher than the depth gauge. And that's great when you first get a new chain. Like I'll show you a new chain right here next to the old one. Okay, if I put this chain right up next to it, you can see those teeth are nice and sharp, and the depth gauges are full height, the tooth is full sized, and everything's ready to go. But as you wear it down, as you use it, as you file away some of the tooth, like these existing teeth are, as you see some, they then start to become lower because there's an angle to the design of the tooth. Because when you're cutting, you need this sharp edge to stick up above everything else. If it was flat across there, it wouldn't cut nearly as well. But also, as you start to file this back in the normal position, then that thing's gonna, see if I can get this thing to sit just right. Then as you file it back, suddenly this cutting edge is going to be lower and lower down. So to compensate for that, you need to file away some of this depth gauge. When you file this, you often have to file the depth gauge. Maybe not every single time, but pretty soon, if you do two or three filings of the cutting tooth, you're going to need to start filing down the depth gauge. Okay. Now the idea with sharpening the teeth is that you want to place your file in here, just like this. And I'm going to move the camera a little bit to see. You're looking for about a 30-degree angle in comparison to the axis of the bar, right? About a 30-degree angle, and then there will be a few others that are slightly different depending on the type of chain and stuff, and they will specifications will be given to you on the bar box. The box that the chain comes in. Whoops. So, so what I'm going to do. So if I was going to file this, to sharpen this chain right now, I could take this file and just put pressure in the forward stroke this way, like that, right? Now that's not too bad. Luckily this chain isn't that dull at the moment, so I'm not going to file away too much. And of course then I would shift it forward and do the next tooth. See, now the teeth go on an opposite angle this way because, you know, when you've got the every other tooth has that side cutting edge on the opposite side. So this tooth's cutting on this side, this tooth is cutting on this side. Well, so I need to do like this on each of these, and then typically what I do is turn the bar around, turn the whole saw around and fasten it in the vise again to do the other teeth, as opposed to trying to switch like this for every other tooth. What I've used often is this little gadget here, which isn't really that much different than just having a file there, except that there are guide lines sitting on top of here. If we look at that for a second, we can see some lines stamped into that metal, and they'll say 30 degrees and 10 degrees and stuff like that. And so I'll get this on here, and when I get ready to push it across the chain and sharpen, I look and make sure that this 30 degree line is parallel to the bar. Try to keep it in the right place the whole time. Go along, do like that, and so on, right? And I keep doing that, let's see, 64 times or whatever, I'll have a sharpened chain, right? Here's this, just like that. Okay. Now, because the manufacturers are smart, steel is smart, they've come up with this gizmo here. A crazy looking thing. Let me zoom out a little bit and we'll make sure we can see it well. Okay, so this thing actually has 4 files built into it, 2 round files and 2 flat files. Actually, I'm lying. It's 2 round files and 1 flat file. Okay, and it's rigged up in this whole jig set up here that will sharpen the tooth, and at the same time this flat file is positioned in just the right orientation to take down the depth gauges at the same time. I mean, normally before I had that thing, I would just take out my flat file, you know, and take it here and file away some of that depth gauge. Right? Maybe I have a little smaller one, it's a little more convenient, but you get the idea. You just sit here and file this down a little bit, take a little bit, make it a little rounded, and that'll keep that. So, but it is very convenient. So now, if I take this jig, and I have to figure out which direction I'm going each time. Okay, so that's going to be this way. Yeah. Okay, so that would be like this. It's so funny, I mess around and have to get it right, huh? Okay, there we go. So now I've got this arrow going in the right direction, and I can position this. This is set up so that I'm going to position that handle so that it is parallel to the line of the bar, and get this snug down into the tooth back here, and just give it a little push like that. Okay, move along, do it a few here just to make sure you see it going. So at the same time that that round file is sharpening the tooth, the flat file built into it at just the right spot is taking away a little tiny bit of the depth gauge. Now you can see I don't have a lot left in this chain here. You see how small that one tooth is. In theory, we'd be doing a better job of keeping the teeth even, because that helps the saw cut straighter through the wood. Let me zoom in on that one. Oops, too far. So this tooth right here has really been worn down a lot. There's barely anything left there. I would suggest this chain is just about at the end of its service life. Officially, steel will actually put a little mark on their chains, a little guide mark. I'm going to hold it up here just for you to see it, I hope. They make a little dash stamped into the top of the tooth, and that tells you when you get back to that point, it's time to discard that chain. And I would think that on this particular chain that we've reached that point on a couple of these teeth. That definitely is a very small tooth, and I believe that line, if it was there, has been filed away. So that's when you buy the chains, of course, there's a bunch of numbers here associated with making sure you've got the right chain for your saw, for your particular saw and your particular bar. And then here will be specifications on how long a bar it goes with. You can't see probably in the picture. It says 16 inches there, or 40 centimeters. It tells how many of these teeth there are, these drive links. It shows you the spacing in between the links, because that's critical. And finally, it shows you the thickness here of that little bottom piece. That's how thick this piece is here, and it matches up with the thickness of the groove there in the top of the bar. So those two have to be the right fit. I mean, obviously they're going to be slightly different. There needs to be a little bit of wiggle so the thing can move, right? But the specification then, you should be careful with that. And this particular saw here has these specifications of, well, this isn't the same. I'm sorry, but it's close. The only difference is this box came from a 20-inch bar, but this other part, the spacing in between the links and the thickness is 1.6 millimeters for the thickness of these drive links. Those two things are correct. This actually has 64 teeth, I believe, and I'm sorry, 67 teeth. This has 67 drive links. This box comes from one with 81, and so this is a 16-inch bar. That's the size that goes on there. Alrighty. Well, be sure to check out my other videos. I have one where I actually use a chainsaw, which is probably a lot more interesting than this one. Thanks for watching. Alright. I want to fill in a couple details, things I didn't mention in the previous segment, and I, want to be very instructionally sound here. So this particular tool, I don't think I mentioned before, is got a real complicated name. This is the Stihl. Stihl's a brand, S-T-I-H-L, and this is the Stihl 2-in-1 filing guide. I assume because it files the cutting teeth and it files the depth gauges at the same time, right? And it's a little pricey, but I've had very good luck using it. So this is about 40 bucks, just what you see right here. Now, of course, occasionally, with enough use, you're going to wear out your files, and so you'll probably need to buy some new files. I've had pretty good luck with Stihl files. There are some other brands that people recommend. Just have to make sure that you're buying chainsaw files and that they're the proper diameter. Okay, so I would pay very close attention to that when you're shopping. A couple other, yeah. Here, I have a couple other brands of files here. Although now I'm feeling kind of silly because I can't put my hands on them. But there, if you look around on the internet, you'll see what people are talking about as far as good quality stuff. Like I said, I've had good luck with the Stihl stuff, and also helps that I have a Stihl dealer right up the road from my house. This one, the really simple version with just the metal guide attached to the file and attach the file with a handle on it. This is just called a Stihl filing guide, okay, or file guide, and so that's very helpful. Now, to look carefully at the technique here, and I don't know if I made it clear before, one thing to be aware of is that there might be a natural tendency to sit here and hold the file at a 90-degree angle to the bar and just file straight across on the teeth, which is probably not a good idea. And so the marks on here say 30 degrees, and what they're talking about is 30 degrees offset from 90. Okay, so you start at 90 degrees and then rotate it 30 degrees. And with this particular model, there are lines on there that show you the 30 degrees, and you just use that as a visual guide to hold it on here when you do your filing then, and make sure you keep them keep this line parallel to the center line of the bar, and it'll do a nice job. Same thing with this. Now the difference here is that your guide is these edges of the tool. Let me just look and make sure. Yeah, that's in the video. So I'm going to make sure that I've got this this edge here parallel to the bar, and that's going to hold it at about a 30-degree angle from 90, right? I also want to make sure that when I'm doing the teeth at angle this direction, that I'm using, I set this up so that these sides are parallel to the bar and the arrow is pointing in the direction I want to file. You always put your pressure in one direction. The files are, meant to cut when they're going in that direction. At the same time, I'm kind of resting this down on the bar, on the other teeth, and the little pieces here keep it at just the right height, so that as I'm filing the tooth, I'm also this flat file is also getting the depth gauge just the right amount, right? And then if I turn it over, I'll see the arrow here, and that'll automatically have me rotate it this way to get these at the proper orientation, and I can do the same thing here. And typically, if you haven't like say hit a rock with one of these or some other terrible thing, just a few strokes with the file will bring that nice sharp edge back up here at the top and on the side. So the 2-in-1 filing guide and the regular file guide, and of course the tile files do wear out after a while, and you'll have to replace them. So there you go. Thanks for listening. Bye-bye.